Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rockin' Beards podcast. It is episode 42, and before we get into that, my name is HSR.
What's up, party people? It's Syd.
And Kristen's busy being musical, so she'll be back maybe next week, maybe in the future. She's grinding, though, and you should check out her shit. But we're going to do some housekeeping before we get into the episode, so if you don't have any interest in that, in the description, you can jump ahead, and that will let you skip over this part that you may have heard a few times if you are not new here. So first, we're going to do a segment I have not yet called anything better than our favorite comment of last week. So let's do that part. Now you can see a comment on the screen, and it's from Joel Calazzo. Sorry about that. Call them NERD. Spell them out. Don't read it nerd. I know I said nerd a few times.
And I was like, what the fuck, man? It's NERD.
And they have always been called that, and it's always meant that no one ever really dies.
And
then
the tinfoil
in the teeth is just from Chad Hugo's girl, I think. That's interesting. I have all three of them on Instagram. Chad has the full pic, and this album is good. Meant for the ones that liked NERD. Do not go looking for happy or anything like girl or any rules. Look for NERD. But then aside from that, listen to the other 4 NERD albums, and all of them fit so well together. And great review. Thanks, buddy. Warp Speed. Love it. My favorite part of that comment might be the warp speed, to be honest with you.
Because you're a Trekkie.
Yeah,
I appreciate this comment, but I also hate happy and everything that it represents.
But that's, I think, what he's saying is NERD isn't that, so don't go into it with that expectation.
It was definitely different than that.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually like a few songs on this album. Just to say this NERD one, I found myself going back to it, and it's totally not boring to me. Okay, comment disappeared. One more thing before we start the podcast.
Oh, okay, fine.
It's fine. What would you like to say?
It's fine, man.
It's cool.
I just wanted to say that I'm still pissed about the features because I still feel like they were totally useless. Just like all these big names, especially that Andre 3000
So you can
feature,
check
man.
in the corner our full thoughts or whatever corner it is on that album. It'll pop up and whatever. So let's talk about the grind to 1,000 subscribers contest, and basically our subscriber count is rising, and we are trying to break that 1,000 subscriber marker as soon as we can. So what we're doing is, if you subscribe to the channel, you hit that like button, and you leave a comment either about the album, about our review, just something to be like engaging, something a little more than shut up or you suck, or just something a little bit more. Give me a reason why I suck, and a few of you have done that. I appreciate it.
For example, this last comment that we just read was entered in the contest.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is how it works. And what will happen after that is we're putting it on an Excel sheet. We're finna use a random number generator and randomly select 3 people. The first place
That's
is
RNG for you video game nerds.
And we're going to grab first place. Will get $100 of Amazon money in an equivalent in your country, and the right to request a review from us with the people you want. So if y'all are on that crew that find me to be an asshole, you can just not have me there, and that will be like that. And second place will get $50. Third place will get $25. All the same kind of thing. Each one will get a review, and we will get those out to you as fast as possible. So that will be coming sooner. I'm putting the work in to make sure that we are ready to deliver. The second that we pop off, it might take a couple of days. We're going to make a little live video or something just to show you that we're not faking the random numbers being generated, and then we're going to present those people, get a hold of them, give it out. It's a real thing is what I'm trying to say. Okay, every video that you go leave a comment on and like gives you an additional entry. On that note, let's talk about this week's album. Syd, would you like to introduce it?
This week, we are doing the kings of metal, whether you believe it or not, or agree with that or not. Metallica, their latest album, Hardwired ... to Self-Destruct. And we chose this record because no new records came out yesterday.
It's been a very dry spell.
It has been a very dry spell. But this year, Metallica dropped their first real album since 2008. You can disagree with that or not, whether you think Lulu is a real Metallica album, whether you think Through the Never qualifies, it doesn't. And yeah, man, it's a double album. It's a nice big slab of some classic Metallica thrash. Got a Grammy nom for Best Rock, up there with Queens of the Stone Age and Mastodon. So we're getting into it. Let's dig in.
Yeah. So just before we get there, I'm gonna explain my history of Metallica because I find it so useful to just tell you how ignorant I am at the very beginning of this podcast, so that I can say that I told you that in the comments. Like, I don't know Metallica that well. I appreciate their brilliance and why they're significant, but let's see. The first Metallica songs I discovered as a teenager were called Saint Anger and called Frantic. And I thought they were cool. And then I found out they weren't cool. And that was okay. Then I found out about Load and Reload and stuff, which was strange to me. Black Album, I listened to that one in full.
So you just straight up went backwards.
Kind of, yeah. But then it stopped. I don't think I've ever really done the earlier albums, and I didn't really listen to much off of Death Magnetic. I did try out the Unforgiven 3 and was very confused by that choice. But like, all that I'm trying to say is I don't really know what, like, you know how Metallica fans talk about how there's like a good Metallica and a bad Metallica? I didn't have that like boundary divided. To me, Metallica is just like this random group that just produces metal sometimes. Like, they sometimes don't. Sometimes it's like rock or really softer shit. And that's how I perceive them. And I know that in the 80s, that is not what a lot of people came into. But I'm explaining my discovery and my process of finding Metallica over the years.
I mean, it's interesting because when people talk now about like the classic Metallica sound, I think a lot of people don't realize that when Metallica were producing that sound, they were not at the level of stardom that they are now. Like between Kill 'Em All and Justice for All, like they got some traction and they started to get known, and especially when they released that first music video for One back in somebody help me out here, 88, 89. You know, they started to get play on MTV, and that's when people started to say, oh my god, Metallica's selling out, I can't believe it. But then they released the Black Album, which is what a lot of people consider the turning point into like the dark era of Metallica or whatever you want to call it. But that's really when they became a household name, and then retroactively people started to discover the older albums, and that's when the hate train started rolling. But had it not been for the Black Album and subsequently Load and Reload, then people wouldn't really have known who Metallica were. So it's cool when you look at it like that.
So he's a lot more knowledgeable, as I think what we're surmising from this moment.
Oh man, I've been listening. Metallica is one of my favorite bands. I've been listening to Metallica. I also, Saint Anger was the first song I heard by Metallica when I was 11 or 12, I don't remember. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. Like, it's kind of a long song. The riff is kind of cool. I'm not really going to go back to it. But then I think it was on Pandora. You remember that thing where you could like put in a genre or put in a style or whatever?
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that hit me with Ride the Lightning, and I was just like, and this is back in like I was barely a teenager. I knew I was listening to like Korn and Linkin Park and shit like that and whatever. And I heard Ride the Lightning, and no riff had kicked my ass the way that riff kicked my ass. And then that solo just fucking wails for like 2 or 3 minutes, and Kurt just goes off on that track. And then I was like this is something I want to get into. So I went out and I bought the shit out of that album. Fight Fire with Fire, fucking that's a classic right there. And then I got into like Master of Puppets is still one of my favorite records. Like, I can listen to that record from start to finish. But I bought the Black Album. I dig the Black Album. It's a good record. I don't even hate Load and Reload that much. I've had some hate for Saint Anger just because I don't mind the song. The album is long and hard to listen to and really repetitive, and that is my beef with that album. But unlike a lot of people, I really enjoy Death Magnetic. So that's where I'm coming from. And we won't talk about Lulu.
Yeah. I work for a company called Lulu, so
that's too bad.
It's interesting. This album is Hardwired to Self-Destruct, and an interesting tidbit that I learned is that James overheard an addict describing the suffering of being an addict, and something he said in that process was Hardwired to Self-Destruct, and it inspired him. And here we are with this album title. And I know it was related to the Hardwired song specifically, that I found that on Genius. You know, that's my source in case I'm wrong. But James left there was a lot of interviews from James on Genius if you want to learn a little bit more about these songs. I don't really dig the cover much. It was just white, one of their faces, and colored like...
It's all 4 of their faces.
Oh, sure.
They're all going... It's like an amalgamation of their faces kind of looking warped.
So it doesn't really do a lot for me. It was like it's one of those ones where when you're scrolling through, it doesn't pop out at me. So to me, it's not necessarily the best album cover. Sorry, that's just how I feel. But I do like the name because it almost has this certain degree of honesty and understanding their history and their story. It seems to be like subject matter they're familiar with, which gives me some confidence in the album even before I listen to it.
I mean, Metallica's never been album cover masters, I don't think. I can't.
And yet they're on every shirt.
Yeah, and it's strange because their logo is so recognizable, and it's like one of those logos that just sticks with you, right? But you think back on their album cover, and it's like, yeah, Master of Puppets is classic because the album is classic, and you recognize the gravestones. But like, I don't even remember what Reload looked like. Saint Anger is just a fist. Death Magnetic is one of the dumbest album covers I think I've ever seen. So I mean, this one is pretty much following in that vein of nondescript white silliness. I mean, it's not a terrible cover, but it's not like But at this point,
I'm not trying to be a hater. I was just saying, to me, it makes a terrible thumbnail because there's a lot of albums it could be when you look at it, and that isn't a good thumbnail.
But at this point, you put Metallica's logo on something, it's gonna sell.
I agree.
So like, the cover is so irrelevant. They are like one of the they've outsold the Beatles. They've outsold like.
I'm not like disagreeing with anything that you're saying. It was just my thoughts.
No, I agree with you. It's funny to think about it. It's just like.
And I get what you're saying. Like, it's crazy how some of the lamer album covers of all time can get such attention due to the fact that it has that iconic logo slapped on it, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
On that note, sometimes the fans out there think I'm pretty hardwired and annoying, so let's get into this. We're so fucked. Shit out of luck. This is like, it just slaps you in the face. Like, when you hear the name Metallica, your first thought, to most people, I guess, is hard, aggressive metal in your face, slaps you. And this delivers in that regard.
Yeah.
It comes in super strong. It's alive. It's like, it's heavy. Lyrically, it's super fucking simple, and it's concise. It's got lines like, on the way to paranoia, on the crooked borderline, on the way to great destroyer, doom design. And it's like, on the one hand, they're almost silly in the way that James writes these, but what he says is so potent and blunt and to the point. I can't help but admire him, at least on this track, and the way he delivers it.
I mean, lyrically, Metallica never really left the 80s, right? Like, a lot of metal bands are doing this, and a lot of them still are, to a certain extent. And you can call Metallica the progenitors of that, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. I remember hearing this track, and, you know, it's been, for Metallica fans, it's been, you know, fucking almost 10 years since Metallica last came out with a record. So it's like, all right, Metallica came out with a new song, and it's not featuring Lou Reed or a B-side or
Okay, we get it, Syd.
What?
We get it.
Oh man, so mad about Lulu.
Still,
but
Metallica drops a new record.
Metallica drops a new song ahead of a new record, right? And you turn it on, it's got that like classic Lars sticking to the guitar beat, and it's super fast and super thrashy, and you find out it's gonna be the first song on the record, and you're like, all right, cool. Like I played this song a bunch. I really enjoyed this song. It's not a classic opener the same way that like Battery or Blackened is. And it's got the same kind of vibe as those songs, right? Like, you expect to turn on a Metallica record and be kicked in the face, and that's what you get with this song. It's blunt, it's simple.
It's okay. Considering the track length of most of this album, it's worth noting this is the only short thing you're gonna listen to.
Yeah,
so it's a very strange single choice in light. It's almost a little bait and switch. Like, here's some hard, punchy Metallica. And no, you're getting some crazy. I'm not complaining. It's just a strange choice to me to use this as the first single to hype up this particular album. But I love this song, actually. Like, it really hit me right.
I mean, it's that classic Metallica sound. It's not, you know, it doesn't get much more bare bones Metallica than this track. Like, the only thing is that and I feel this way with a lot of this record, and I know this has been a complaint from a lot of people. Is that Kirk is kind of missing in the solo department, and something happened. I don't remember exactly what it was. All of the solos on this thing are improvised, So you get a lot of that Kirk whammy bullshit that he could pass through in the 80s because the solos are really melodic and really, really planned out and really thought out and really thorough. And, you know, you get that pretty much throughout Metallica's career except for on Saint Anger. But on this record, they're just kind of, you can feel him phoning it in. And, like, I don't know. And I do appreciate
him.
I do appreciate Lars's contributions, like, to this on this song. And a lot of people hate on Lars, and I, you know, as a songwriter and as someone who services the song as opposed to showing off, I think Lars really does a good job in general, and I really like his delivery on this track because it's exactly what you want. It's punchy, it's heavy as hell.
So I just gotta say, it's a little more to that than me, right? So I am coming at this with almost no expectations. I just figured it would be like thrashy, right? In general, it's not an unfair association to expect thrash from Metallica. But when it comes in, I noticed there's a lot of little intricacies, right? It's very non-static. A lot of changes in rhythms, a lot of little breaks and stuff. And even in this little 3-minute adventure, it manages to stay alive enough to not just be a straight blast to your face. It's a lot of little blasts to your face broken up by things in the middle. And to me, that actually increases the value of this little song here. Lyrically, it's sound, man. It really captures the essence of like a person who feels that all the choices in their life and everything is kind of sending them on this path of destruction, which is probably something a lot of people can relate to, which makes this an interesting approach. It's not just this callous, empty song.
Yeah.
It's like, it might be simple, but it has super depth in light of its simplicity, considering it is genuinely about something. And the way that the song progresses lyrically and the way the music goes along with it, it's almost like the music carries the story. And so for me, it kind of achieved its goal as being a dope song.
I mean, I absolutely think it achieved its goal. And the thing is, when you talk about a simple Metallica song, like a simple Metallica song
Simple
is
lyrics.
still, but even a simple song from Metallica is still full of all kinds of technical twists and turns. And it's I'm going to use a term that you gave me this week from a comment. I don't remember who made the comment, but you didn't understand it. Riff buffet.
Oh yeah.
I like that term now, and that definitely applies to this record. It is definitely a riff buffet, and that's what you want when you go into Metallica, right? You want riffs in your face.
What? I'm gonna give it to you. It was a riff buffet, and I quite enjoyed my time with it. I give this song's a 4.5 on 5 to me. As far as like, look, I put this on honestly 8 in the morning, and it was better than coffee. It was I know some people who like blasting metal to wake up, and to me it achieved that goal.
Yeah.
So, and it was pleasant to listen to. It wasn't just like rah rah. No, it was. James has a good voice. Can't hate it.
James has a very unique voice. You either love it or you hate it.
Anyway, 4.5 on 5. Dope track.
I'm gonna hit it with a 4 on 5, just because in context of Metallica openers, and I might get hate for this, but you know, like it's not Battery, it's not Blackened, and those songs are so special to me in my heart. Like those are two of my favorite Metallica tracks, and this one does the same thing. You know what I mean? Just like many years later. So it's kind of that. So I really do dig the track. It's just not like, but that's it.
Okay, so
I don't
the
remember what's
next
next.
one is Atlas Rise. Hold up. Before we get into talking about this song, I quoted some shit I found on Genius.
Okay.
Atlas was condemned by the Greek gods after the Titan Wars to carry the earth and skies on his shoulder for eternity at the far edge of the world, where he would be taken away from all contact. So context to this song, it's inspired by the character of Atlas from Greek mythology, who like held up the world, like raised the roof, literally. Just throwing it out there. And I feel like the song kind of does this thing where it has your main protagonist talking to another person who is to be like this Atlas thing. But I also think it's to parallel the idea of this metaphor of we put the weight of the world on our shoulders and we all assume we have to do shit on our own and blah, 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 blah. And then this person's almost criticizing this Atlas martyr type person while looking at them and being like, I can help you. You don't actually have to do it. And then be like, you know what? And the chorus is like, fuck you. Be like that. In like the way it's almost framed, like this satirical, almost condescending look on this silly way of thinking. Now, I might be completely wrong. I'm just saying this is what I took from it. But it's got lines like bitterness and burden, choruses rest on thee, solitary and sorrow, all eternity, save the earth and claim perfection, deem the mass and blame rejection, hold the post, fame perception, grudges break your back. So it's kind of like, I took from that, like, the person is almost hyping up their noble deeds and shit because they feel they have to do this stuff and blah, 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 almost creating this. It almost sounds like the idea of the false martyr syndrome that you might know somebody like that or some, anyway. So that was super fucking interesting. But then you have the pre-chorus where it's almost like a more I perspective instead of a you perspective. And he goes, blame the world, blame your maker, wish him to the undertaker, crown yourself the other savior, so you carry on. I'm just like, damn. I really, after the last song's lack of the depth in lyrics, right, I just wasn't expecting it to be followed up with something that was so profound to me. Anyway, and I even wrote, maybe I'm reading into this in my notes, but it's the strange, because James quotes himself saying that this is about the grind and like focusing on and shit, and I'm like, this is the weirdest song about the grind I've ever heard, but that's not a bad thing. It's cool to have come up with something that hit me so distinctly that this perhaps, anyway, I've rambled on.
No,
that has nothing to do with like the music or anything. That was just HSR's lyrical analysis. Music, he usually, anyway, it's fucking dope. I appreciate this track. I feel like it carries the energy of the previous song over into this one. It does it differently, but it's almost got that more noble superhero. Like, honestly, this song could have been in a cartoon movie about Hercules. I mean, if it would make sense to do that in another universe. But, like, it has that feel, this epicness to it, this rise up. And I dig the way that he can, that in the way that dope hip-hop, like, has lyrics and a beat that conveys emotion.
Yeah.
I feel like in both these tracks, Metallica has managed to do that with absolute fucking grace and finesse. And for that, I think this shit is another 4 on 5. It is, as a dude who's not necessarily a hardcore Metallica fan, and I don't need them to be a certain way, I just really appreciate how dope this track is, because if you compare it against maybe Mastodon's album, who they're up against, I feel like this is more interesting musically.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Mastodon and their careers since Blood Mountain are another topic for another day, but this song is more representative than the last one of what you're gonna get from this record. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a really big chunky piece of Metallica, and like, this song would have fit right in as much on Death Magnetic as on And Justice for All. Like, just big, progressive, technical, intricate pieces of metal, you know what I mean? And I really do dig a lot of the little changes, and you're gonna get a lot of Lars going da 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 da, which, you know, a lot of people hate him or love him for, but it's a good song. It's a good song. It's not, the verse is a little too much na 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 na, which if you've been listening to Metallica, then you know that's what you're gonna get from Metallica, and it's like, it almost feels like a cop out at this point, you know what I mean? So I gave the song a 4 on 5 as well, just because.
4.5.
Oh, you gave it a 4.5. Sorry, I thought I heard 4.
I really like this shit.
I gave it a 4 just because the verses are so much Metallica by numbers that it kind of bogs down the rest of it. And don't get me wrong, the rest of the song is really, really tight and really, really brilliant. But it's just, I've heard those verses so many times that it's like, it's just like, really, you did it again. And there's a few instances, but we'll get to that later. But now that we're dead.
If you want to make the pun, you gotta pay attention, bruv. I was really excited when we did the last track for how, like, deep and dope and into it I was. This song is just not giving me the... Person A lost a loved one, and then person A is speaking to said lost loved one and wants to die to be with them again. And first I pictured the Avenged Sevenfold song, that like 9-minute little piece of heaven thing, and I'm like,
Oh man, that song is so good.
anyway. But then I said, okay, that's fine. I shouldn't compare people. And then my next thought was, both of these songs were corny. That doesn't make them less good, but they're corny. And on the one hand,
Okay, hang on. I just need to get it. If you haven't heard Avenged Sevenfold's "Little Piece of
it's
Heaven,"
a great song.
do yourself a favor. Go watch the video right now.
It's truly amazing. I'm not gonna lie. That doesn't make it less corny for its amazingness.
But okay, so that song is Disney corny.
This
like
song is pretty Disney corny to me.
Really? Okay.
All sinners a future, all saints a past, beginning, the ending, return to ash.
We're dead, my dear.
Or a little piece. Or I gotta get a heater for her thighs. I mean, it's just. I mean, they're different kinds of corny. I'll give it to you, but in the same realm as this is silly, which is fine. It's not a negative criticism. I still kind of enjoyed the song. I felt like we had this great energy that was like up here, and I was like, yeah, and then we just kind of took a dip down here for a minute. Still good. It's just, I almost found myself giggling at some of the lines in this as I was listening to it, as opposed to appreciating it. Be that as it may, the music is truly impeccable.
Yeah.
Because the actual music outside of the corny lyrics is equal to the previous two tracks and had me in the same kind of thing. But you got to keep in mind, this shit's like 7 minutes long practically. So it's like 7 minutes of interlope corny spliced with truly dope and awesome. And my favorite parts of this song are when James is not singing. Not to be rude, but because I feel like the music's like, yeah, and then he's singing and I'm like, so it was just a strange, and this is all on me, and y'all can hate it if you like it. That's cool. I get a shit of 4. It's an okay song. It's just I couldn't see myself going back to this one as much as, say, the more serious tracks on this album.
I just gotta say, it's really, we're talking about comparing Metallica to bands like Mastodon and Avenged Sevenfold, and you've always got to keep in the back of your mind, right? Metallica is still releasing records.
To be fair,
but at the same time, bands like Mastodon and Avenged Sevenfold, their style of music would not exist without Metallica.
Oh, I'm not saying that they're better. Let's just be clear.
It's not a better or worse thing. It's just like respect to the masters that did it first, right?
Agreed.
And
but they chose to release an album as old men, so that's why we're here talking about it today.
I had the luxury. We don't often have the luxury of having weeks and months of listens before we do. He didn't, but this song has been playing on this song gets regular play on Showm, and when I first heard it, it was kind of nondescript to me, except for the chorus, which is big and fucking epic. But the more I heard it, the more it's kind of always stuck in my head. And yes, as Metallica lyrics go, now that we're dead, my dear, we can be together. Like I was singing that to myself last night. My mom kind of went, the fuck is that? Like what are you saying? And I'm just saying it's Metallica.
It's a guy who's like obsessed with his like I'm not. Look, it's fine. I'm going to let it go.
It's one of those things. You love it or you hate it. It's,
Sorry to cut
until
you
it
off.
sleeps, the thing that should not be. It's Metallica. It's Metallica that has been Metallica for the last forever.
That's fine.
I gave the song a 4 on 5 as well.
I gave it a 4 too.
I gave it a 4.
I said that.
I find the verse more interesting than the last one, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, maybe as time goes on, this will become one of my favorite songs. But as I've said, I like the record. It's not my favorite Metallica record. It's not the worst Metallica record. It's good. It's a good addition to their back catalog, as this song is a good addition to their collection of songs, and will inevitably be played live one day and have a huge sing along.
Well, to be fair, it definitely has been.
It definitely has been played live.
Videos of their fucking touring on their YouTube,
and it definitely gets massive sing-alongs. So.
No, but look, I'm not trying to diminish the quality of the song. This is like me hitting these lyrics and going, oi. And this is almost my first reaction, almost the whole album. I didn't really listen to it before this week. I knew it was out. I never got around to it. I've been fucking podcasting the last year. My music listening choices have a little bit changed than prior to reviewing multiple albums a week.
But I mean, my reaction to Metallica is always just like a moth into the flame.
Yeah. Okay, you can't keep doing this to me. Now we're back to the super fucking dope, awesome, like deep song lyrics, and maybe a little on the corny side, but he's like a dad's age now. I don't know if he's actually a dad or
Oh
not.
yeah.
But,
Actually,
like,
there's a video of him and his daughter singing. I don't remember what they sang together. It's beautiful. She's a great singer too.
so like
Uh,
like you gotta like keep in mind that as I'm criticizing his corniness a bit, I expect the man is now on dad joke part of life, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with that shit.
just like Darth Vader.
Anyway, so this song is fantastic. It's about like criticizing our reliance on shit like technology, as we use all of these smartphones and gadgets, and it's interesting. Or no, sorry, that's not this one. This one is fuck. This one's about fame and the lust for fame. I apologize. I got a little confused there. And so it's got lines like "Sold your soul, built a higher wall yesterday. Now you're thrown away. Same rise and fall. Who cares at all? Seduced by fame, a moth into the flame." That's the chorus, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's fucking wicked. It's like this whole song takes this like old dad looking back on like this idea of being seduced by fame, and keeping in mind they probably were in the beginnings. If I understand, their career was a little wild at first until
Yeah.
they calmed down. So they are guys who have lived this life, thinking back on it and honestly sharing some observational wisdom about how they see the trends of things going, with how desperate people are becoming in their pursuit of fame and how they're willing to do anything. I mean, if somebody is willing to literally hold up a phone book and take a magnum shot for views on YouTube, you know that they're probably a little more apt in their description of what's happening than any of us might like to admit. And so Metallica dropping wisdom on us like that, I appreciate it. I really dig that.
But it's cool because you look back at their career, right? And like, as much as they get a lot of hate, and boy do they get hate, Metallica has always been one of those bands that have kind of done them, regardless of what's going on around them. Like even at the beginning of their career, right? Like they were big in the '80s when, and I say big in the '80s, like they were gaining success and traction in the '80s when every other metal band that was big and successful was dressing up in drag and singing about having sex and getting drunk. They were like, glam metal was basically what rap is today, or what mainstream hip hop is. I'm sorry, not what rap is. But and Metallica were fucking singing about getting electrocuted in an electric chair because they were criminals, and Egyptian pharaoh killing the 10 plagues of Egypt. Like that's what Metallica were doing. And even as their career continued, they just kind of ignored what the fuck everyone else was doing and did whatever they wanted to do anyway, and it's always kind of gotten angry reactions from people. But this song is just a great. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Keep going.
But this song is just a fucking great representation of all of the best parts of Metallica's career. Like it's got the heavy thrash, it's got the dual guitar harmonies, it's got the beautiful melodies that they really perfected in the 90s. Whether you hate or love Load and Reload, you can't argue that that's where they really perfected making just great melodies, and it's everywhere, and it's like from second to second in the chorus that like "Sold your soul" and it's "Rise and Fall," like it's just back and forth, and it fits. And if you watch them play this song live, I will argue to the death that this is proof that Metallica are one of, if not the tightest rock bands live. No help from a studio, no backing tracks. They play their shit just note perfect every time you watch them play. It is mesmerizing, and this song is a great example of that. It's a jolt, it's a thrill to watch them play this one. This one got a 5 from me. I love this track.
Honestly, even on a lyrical front, another great line that just fits the concept of a song so well. So light it up, light it up. Another hit erases all the pain. Bulletproof, no excuse. You're falling, but think you're flying high again. And it's like the way they're comparing this lust for fame to something they understand very well, the addiction, the thrill. It's just it's good. I really dig it. It's a 5. It is one of the best songs on this record.
Yeah.
And if you were only gonna go and cherry pick 2 or 3, you must hit this one.
Yeah.
There's one more I'm gonna give that firm stamp to. And anyway, so yeah, this one and that other one we'll get to at some point.
But yeah, this is a classic Metallica track, like hands down.
And for those who were felt like they were sleeping, you can dream no more because Moth and the Flame handed it to you. This is the part of the review where the Metallica fans might not like my thoughts on this song. again, we've gone from hyper satirical, interesting, whatever, back into mythology. And I don't hate the fact that they tell these myth-based stories, because it is awesome to explore history and to draw influence from cultures like this, where clearly they're very aware of Cthulhu. Cthulhu. I don't know how to say it. And they've apparently written multiple songs on the subject, and that's totally fine and acceptable. But I felt this was kind of like a generally boring song, where it felt like a typical scary monster waking up. He's gonna come get you. But like, there was nothing to it. There was no niche. There was no special to the story. It honestly felt like a by numbers monster track in terms of the lyrics. And the music didn't really hit me right. It was slower paced, a little whatever, but it just kind of fell flat for me the whole way through. And it's long, right? So I feel like on this album, the second you hit a song you're not into and you gotta listen to like, it's like 6 minutes of it, you start to like almost exponentially lose interest in the track. At least I do sometimes, and that was a little bit the case here. I felt it was just, I don't care about him singing about the monster rising up. It didn't do very much for me. It wasn't bad by any means. It was musically proficient, and how Jay used to say, the guys are obviously really talented musicians and know exactly what the fuck they're doing, and everything you said reflects in the recording of this song. But I found it boring, so I gave it a 3, because I could deal with never listening to this song again for the rest of my life.
I mean, I think the thing really is that for someone who has listened to a lot of Metallica records, this is the part of the record where you expect something like Welcome Home or One or The Day That Never Comes. You know what I mean? Like, this would have been the perfect spot for that Metallica ballad, and there isn't one on this record. And for a record that's 12 songs, and they're all just fucking heavy and relentless, it's a little much, especially when they are all this long. What's cool to me about this song is that this is really where you get to hear like Metallica's influences shining through, which, you know, a lot of the time Metallica are the influence. So you hear that classic Metallica sound, you're like, all right, they did that. That sounds like Metallica. But here, like, the vocals really sound like Ozzy in the 70s. Like, they sound like Sabbath. The music is a little slower. It's a little more Led Zeppelin-y. So you get to hear those bands that Metallica grew up listening to. You know what I mean? Like Diamond Head, Motorhead, bands like that kind of shine through in this one. In terms of subject matter, no, this is not the first time Metallica has sung about Cthulhu. I mean, Call of Cthulhu is an instrumental track, so say what you will about whether or not they're revisiting subject matter.
No, I mean, apparently there was 2 additional songs with lyrics about Cthulhu.
Probably, I don't remember.
On Genius, if you go look at the annotations, you'll see the names of them all. I apologize for not writing them down.
But yeah, I mean, yes, Metallica enjoy the works of H.P. Lovecraft, so that is what it is. The song is not the greatest Metallica song ever written. It's not the worst Metallica song ever written. It is cool if you want to hear something from them that really shines, that really showcases them putting their influences in the forefront. And that's its place to me on this record. I give it a 4 on 5.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I just still found it a little meh. So let's talk about the closer of disc 1.
Halo on Fire!
You know, they did it again. They did it. At this point, though, I'm a little bit more like, they did it on purpose, clearly, flipping the serious to silly to serious to silly. Okay, I'm not going to criticize that anymore. It's just, for me, that's the experience. It's a flip-flop.
I think the thing is, at the end of the day, they're a metal band. And metal, part of the attraction to metal, at the same time part of what turns people off of metal, you know, it's a double-edged sword, it's a catch-22, is that they write about really silly things sometimes. They write about horror movies, they write about...
But take like Amon Amarth, who will do like a whole album about Vikings. The whole album's about Vikings.
Well, take Amon Amarth. Look, Amon Amarth, You watch them live. Their singer is like 7 foot ridiculous fucking
my
shirtless
point
guy
is,
with a conch shell on his side. Like their whole shtick is Vikings.
But that's my point. So for me, the issue is that literally every song we're flipping back from serious subject matter to sillier subject matter.
But Amon Amarth gets old.
Which is fine, and I'm not criticizing this in a negative way. I'm describing that for me, the experience is like being a ping pong ball going back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's all I was trying to say there. On that note, we're back onto the serious side of interesting shit. Because this song attacks the way duplicitous characters are, in the sense of the more saintly a person often appears, it's almost in a sense contradiction to what's going on inside of their soul. And so it's almost like you only need to be saintly to cover nefarious deeds in the first place is like the premise of it. Then it's like, obey, come, won't you stay, sincere, all ends in tears. And that's how the first verse is all noble. It's like, trying to like, hey, I can come help you, I'm the shit. And then the second thing goes with allure, sweetness obscure, abide, secrets inside. And it's like the same parsing, but showing just how the coin flips and stuff. And I'm like, Metallica's fucking with my head, bro. Between like the super sleuth Cthulhu, and then to this, and I'm not hating it. It's just interesting because this is the longest song, 8 minutes. This song is 3 of those little fires with a red 100 for fucking freshness. It is so good. It is alive. And then you think the song is dope, and around the 6-minute, 20-second marker, it goes hard as a motherfucker. And it just unloads into the solo-y goodness of flowy music and awesome shit. Like, it blew my mind. Like, I guess this is kind of what you are hoping for when you hear Metallica, dope, whatever. And as a closer for disc 1, if we think about it as 2 discs,
right,
hits it. It is one of the nicest closers for a disc, although it doesn't feel like that because there's a whole other disc that you can come across. I like it. It is a 5. It is amazing. Like, it is so well thought out, meticulously planned, and there's a lack of repetition in it. It just feels alive, like it keeps growing, and it's amazing.
I mean, what's cool about this one is it's pretty much the sweetest that James's voice sounds across this double record. It's still got that growl, but it's nice. It's pleasant during the verses, and the verses are something different. There's something so it's a little bit of a curveball, and it's got one of those epic Metallica choruses and one of those epic Metallica instrumental sections, and I can't really hate on anything in this song. It's really, really good. It's really solid. It's a great closer. This one I came into already, like, I had a little bit of pre-hype because I hadn't heard the entire record yet, and one of my friends who was also a huge Metallica fan was like, man, and everyone on the internet was raving about Spit Out the Bone, right? But he was like, nah, man, Halo on Fire. And so I went and I checked this one out, and I really do love the song. It's really good. It is just a little long for me, and I mean, I know it's Metallica, so it's a silly thing to say, but it is just a little bit long for me. So I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
That's okay. So it has a little bit of confusion, is what I'm trying to say. So they wrote a song about PTSD. I'm willing to bet this is not their first one, but I'm okay with that.
No, it is not.
And from the perspective of a soldier who's come back from war, again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just, even I know that this is definitely subject matter they have covered before. And they weren't very subtle with lines like shell-shocked, all I've known. It's like shell-shocked is like the 1920s version of PTSD. It's the same syndrome, but the name got longer and more convoluted. There's an interesting video floating around that describes how the etymology of these things has gotten softer so that we're okay with it more. I digress. Shell-shocked is PTSD. It's the same thing. You can also take a look at like the opening lyrics of "Wake to face the day, grab this life and walk away. War is never done. Rub the patch and battle on. Make it go away. Please make it go away." Now, I'm not saying this condescendingly. I know sometimes I come off like a dick and my tone makes it sound like I'm sarcastic or something. It's just really serious subject matter, and I actually really appreciate what they did with this track. They approached these things maturely, and they really do try to show how something like PTSD is a war and a battle inside of your head, and it's worth writing about. No points off on that front. It's sick, like musically. I really dig it. I don't know how to describe it. It's got all the right elements of fun, aliveness, and good drumming and bassing and guitaring. It feels a little on the softer end of it, like almost like a different brand of what they had previously done in terms of less thrashy, I would say. But it does pick up by the end. I think it's a 4.5 on 5. I would recommend this track. I don't think it's like the staple of this album, but it's a really good track 7 for this album.
I don't know what it is, and I think what I'm going to say is probably unfair, and a lot of you are going to disagree with me, but I've only heard this track in the context of the rest of the album. Like, I've only heard it listening through straight. I've never listened to it on its own. I've never had any desire to go back and listen to it on its own. This track just didn't do for me what most of the rest of the record did. And I don't think it's a bad song. It's a forgettable song. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I gave it a 3.8 on 5.
All right.
But, man, I'm unkind.
This song is epic. It is really fun to listen to on a musical front. It's got a life and an energy, and it explodes, and all sorts of wonderful things happen in my mind when I vibe to this song, and I didn't listen to James. When I listen to James, though, we are back into a bit of a cornier approach. See, like, I feel like he did simple really good in Hardwired, but any other time he tried simple on this album, it came off kind of corny. Like, I don't like this. I've become a hostage to my mind, left myself behind, blindly blind, quest to find faith in ManUNkind. It's not brilliant. It's just whatever. Okay, look, maybe I'm being a dick. The song has a proper fucking message, and I admire and respect what the point of the song is. It's basically people who get caught up in their head so fucking much, and they get so lost in like their mind that they end up losing their faith in mankind. So he articulates it like faith in ManUNkind, like you just become to believe the worst of everything. And like I know enough people who are exactly the walking representation of what this song is to highly admire and respect the subject matter, and it's not that bad. I just find it a little cheesy. So I love the music. The lyrics are a little on the weaker end, but still about something real. A lot of admiration about that. So yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4.25. It's definitely a great track. It's just not one of my favorites because, for me, everything's got to be there for it, and it's more than just the music. And I understand that every time I've talked about metal like this, I get the speech about metal's all about the music, and and I get that speech. But that's why I'm here, to be the guy who's not that guy. So that's where you can come in and describe it. And
I mean, I think it's not metal is all about the music. I think it's metal is a chance for lyricists to get away with things that they wouldn't be able to get away with in a pop context, right?
Not from our front or this guy.
Fair enough, but yes, it can be silly and it can be ridiculous, but that's, it's fun. It's experimental. For me, this is one of the best songs Metallica has ever put to tape. The second this song came on, it's got this like soft, sweet bass intro, and then just the way that they play with rhythms in this song is something that even from them you don't hear that often, and it's so cool. It's so fucking cool, and the middle section just kicks your ass left, right, and center. I cannot shed enough praise on this song. This is a 5.5 on 5 for me. I love this track. Like, this is the reason I got into Metallica songs like this, as a fanboy, as just someone like. That's it.
I just gotta say, I don't disagree with your assessment of the song. So if anyone thinks I'm not appreciating all of that, I do. I'm saying the way the lyrics hit me bothered me enough to give it that mark in light of all of that,
which is fair.
Anyway, if you have nothing more,
I got nothing more.
Here comes revenge in that comment section. I want to read a quote from James to add some context to this song. Just tons of stuff about families that have someone taken from them. There's a friend of mine whose son died, and I won't name names. There's a couple that followed us on tour for a long time that has been very instrumental in that song and inspirational to me. Their daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and she loved Metallica, and the way this family is staying connected with her is coming to Metallica shows and blah, blah, blah. Basically, this song is the feelings of how James would have reacted if that had happened to him. And that's the story behind. And so it's basically his vision of enacting revenge on somebody that took his daughter away. And he's got lines like, man has made me oh so strong, blurring lines of right and wrong, far too late for frail amends, now it's come to sweet revenge, desperate hands that lose control, have no mercy on your soul, on your soul. Now, I can really appreciate this because there's a certain honesty to the way he wrote this song where it feels authentic. It doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel pandering. It doesn't feel cheesy. It just feels like this deep, heartfelt, interesting song that he's putting this empathy into this story he has come across far too many times, and that makes this truly amazing to me. Like, it is really a well-rounded package. It's 7 minutes long, and I don't actually find that this song gets boring. I feel like as it gets on, James gets more aggressive in his delivery and more like emotionally invested in it. And to match that, the music does exactly the same thing and gets more intense and matches it. And it truly creates almost like, and you know they're into like orchestral music and shit. It's fucking clear. And I think this track really captures the essence of that orchestral experience of almost telling a story and really doing a whole thing within a single song. And for me, that was brilliant as fuck. I guess a 4.5 on 5. It is still 7 minutes, and you do got to be a little bit in the mood for Metallica to put it on. Be that as it may, it's fucking epic.
I mean, that's it. Like for me, this is, again, the record is starting to drag a little bit. It's a lot, even for someone who's like a heavy Metallica fan. And it's just, it illustrates the fact, you know, these songs are all long. A lot of the time it's because they need to give Kirk his moment, right? And to give Kirk his moment on a record where he went in and didn't plan anything out and improvised everything, is that just
fact?
That is fact, yeah.
Okay.
That is straight up fact. And I respect the attempt, right? Because he's never done that before. But you know, to have had like Saint Anger, where they kind of said, "Okay, Kirk, shut up. You're not allowed to do anything," and then Death Magnetic came out, and it was like just the fucking, you felt the revenge. You felt him just getting in there and giving his all on every solo, whether you believe that is hugging the whammy bar or not is what it is earned or whatever. It's his style. Deal with it. But on this record, that's pretty much all it is, and it's just. I really would have liked to have heard something a little more planned out, and that's not just my complaint with this song. That is my complaint with a lot of the songs here. And it's a dated complaint. It's not something you're hearing for the first time here.
Unless you're one of the people who watch mostly the rap videos and got curious, and then maybe it is the first time you're hearing that.
But no, I mean, I don't hate the song. I do like it. It's got a little more of that 90s Metallica sound. It's a little slower. It's a little more melody oriented, which is cool. I gave it a 4 on 5.
All right, let us continue our... before we do continue our quest, this is now 3 on the more serious side of tracks in a row, so we've broken the ping pong effect, and I say that knowing that we're about to talk about Am I Savage? Metallica did it. They found the crossroads between ridiculously silly, corny, and actually saying something fucking powerful with it. Respect. What I mean is, this song's about a guy who's like a werewolf, and he's contemplating. You know he's a werewolf. He makes like a full moon reference and the savagery, but at the same time, you can see the parallel between any monstrous behavior and being a werewolf, and how under the moonlight, or when this thing happens and I get triggered and I do whatever. So, all right, I'm still with you, James. And then it gets kind of next level with it, where he goes, in the little bridge part, ooh, inheritance, the past has bid again. Ooh, the next heir of anarchy, feel stretching skin so far beyond I feel the ever-changing you in me. And apparently James and I agreed, because James kind of described this a bit, it's the idea of inheritance, right? So this werewolf has a kid. That kid inherits this werewolf genome that would have that same thing. So let's say you're addictive or you're an alcoholic, or pick a thing. If you have a kid and then you reflect on your child, and did I give you the same monstrous characteristic that lives inside of me, understanding genetic dispositions and shit? And I'm like, damn, I found a lot of meaning in a werewolf song. And I really kind of dig this one. It is particularly cool on a lyrical front, how I found that balance, but on a musical front, I found it a little boringer. I think this is the one that's a little more bluesy, but Metallica bluesy. And I'm just not that into the blues sound as much as maybe I should. I appreciate why it's good music while not enjoying it as other people do. So it felt a little less good to me than some of the other tracks on this album. But the concept's tight. Dope concept. I'm giving this a 4 on 5.
What's cool, I mean, Metallica like to make little callbacks to earlier moments in their career. They like to make little callbacks to like their influences. Like, you know, they like to do sequels, as evidenced by the fact that they've done The Unforgiven 3 fucking times. And I saw this title and I couldn't help but wonder, because they have professed to be huge Diamond Head fans, and they have covered Am I Evil, right? Which is about my mother was a witch, she was burned alive, and it's about his son thinking back like, am I evil like my mother? Classic fucking 70s metal song. And I couldn't help but wonder if this was Metallica's answer to that. And I think it might have been, because... And I mean, look, this is not the first metal song written about a werewolf. It's not the first metal song written about a movie monster. Ozzy did Bark at the Moon back in the 80s. Iced Earth have a whole fucking album about Dracula. So, you know, and Metallica do it particularly well here. It's slow, it's heavy. It is a little bluesier again. It's a little bit more of that like 90s Metallica sound. You know, that radio rock versus the really heavy. But it's cool. It's an interesting track. It's an interesting track so late in the game too. Like what are we? We're 2 tracks away from the end of the record. So Kirk's half-assedness makes a little more sense over the
10.
blues too. So, you know, I dig it. I gave it a 4 on 5.
Alrighty. As Syd said, we're getting closer to the end. Let's move on to Murder 1. Shines on to the sound, one crown. So what I learned today is Murder 1 was Lemmy's favorite amp. And this song is a tribute to Motorhead, because James is particularly saddened at the passing of Lemmy. Rest in peace, sir. And Motorhead was a huge influence to Metallica. Therefore, they wrote this song. On that note, I believe Aces High is a Motorhead song, so I caught that reference.
No, Aces High is an Iron Maiden song.
Shit, see, that's how...
Ace of Spades is a Motorhead
that's
song.
what I meant to say. I meant to say that. I know that song. I just got confused. And that's really the point of this song for me, is I don't know that I'm qualified to comment on this. Understanding it's a tribute to a band I know nothing about, really, it makes it really hard for me to have any frame of reference to appreciate what they're doing. Be that as it may, it's a good song. It's very simple, and I got the feeling that they were just paying respect, and that's about as far as I got with it. I gave it a 4. Maybe when I do inevitably get more into Motorhead's catalog, I'll come back, I'll listen to this, and I'll find more value in it. But it was a little like, okay, was my feelings with it, and I respect it as talented. I just don't get the nuances.
I mean, I'm gonna put that to rest right now. This song doesn't sound like Motorhead.
Was it?
It doesn't.
I'm not saying it did. I'm saying that's what he said.
Sure. It sounds like Metallica. I don't know. They have sounded like Motorhead more in the past. I like the song. Again, it's not the best Metallica song ever put to record. It's not the worst. It's fine. The riff is a little forgettable. It's cool. And I dig the tribute. But, you know, That's pretty much where it is. And sometimes tribute songs do tend to be hit or miss, right? Like either you've got that amazing tribute that's going to bring you to tears, or you've got Metallica writing a Metallica song with lyrics that are a tribute to Lemmy. And no disrespect, like I love the guy. I dig Motorhead. I'm glad that they put this here because every metal band, I think, in the last couple of years has done a tribute to Lemmy, and it makes sense because, the guy did everything for the genre. But I gave this one a 3.8. I think this is musically my least favorite track on the record just because it is really forgettable.
All right. One more. Spit Out the Bone. I did say there was a second song that if you had to like fucking put on and it was stellar and totally 5-on-5 worthy, there would be one that we talk about, and it is this beautiful ode to technology replacing humanity in the future. It's almost like James is looking around at the smartwatches and stuff. Yeah, I know I said this already. It was on the wrong song. And he's like, notice the technologies and the smartness and how everything is kind of almost human-like. In fact, even today, I saw a human robot personal assistant, and I applied to maybe be a beta tester for that shit. Because how cool would that be to have a little robot that helps me? Maybe, like, I'm just saying, that's where we're at. And so the idea here is to take that one step further, destroy the flesh entirely, and make it all machine because it's more efficient. So you got this awesome line like, the flesh betrays the flesh, your man has had his time, we lay him down to rest, machined the new divide. And you got this track where then the rest of the lyrics kind of also challenge the idea of the need for man since machines are proven to be more efficient, etc. I actually don't know how much I've already said on this song, so I'm going to just end it by saying this track is a 5. To me, it's one of the best. To me, it's the best song I heard on the album, so if people are freaking out about it, I totally get it. It's fucking intricate. It's fucking interesting. It's got a lot of little things, and it's really powerful. Like, it's just intense. And after the last few tracks where it was a little calmer, let's say, it's almost like this is the pick-me-up to leave the whole experience with a serious fucking bang. Good job, Metallica.
Good job, Metallica. You did it. Yeah, I mean, I remember when the record came out. It came out, what, in summer? It was whatever. Anyway.
I should know that.
What?
I said I should know that.
We should both know that. Record came out. And everyone, actually, last whatever.
Yeah.
Came out sometime in 2017.
Maybe.
And people on the internet started going nuts for Spit Out the Bone. And I remember it very, very clearly because it was like, because Metallica are always releasing live videos of all their concerts all the time because they love their fans, and for some reason their fans just hate them. But
November 18th, 2016.
there you go. So it came out in 2016. But and then they Lars was like, we're probably gonna play Spit Out the Bone at some point. And everyone was like, oh my god, they're gonna play Spit Out the Bone live. And they played Spit Out the Bone live. And obviously it's fucking awesome to watch because it is a very intricate song. It's classic Metallica thrash. It's fucking fun to watch them do it. It's got these like Iron Maiden type passages on the guitar. It's just the song itself didn't, like, there was so much hype for it before I even heard it that I was expecting like a masterpiece, you know what I mean? And I do like the song. It's a 4.5 for me, but it's not like the greatest thing they've ever, like, it's
pretty great.
It's a good song. For me, my favorite track from this whole thing, Moth Into the Flame and ManUNkind. And I know ManUNkind is cheesy and whatever, but those are my favorite ones. This one's a close third, I think.
I would say those are strong songs for this album. But yeah, do you have more on this one?
Nope.
So let's wrap it up. So for those of you just tuning in, we have been talking about Hardwired to Self-Destruct, and I give this album as a whole a 4.3333 repeated on 5. I think it's an extremely solid album, and I can see how this goes down as that revival album of Metallica's reputation, where people are like, yeah, they're not full of shit again. And that's how I would perceive this. Like, if I were to, like, just like hazard an assumption of quality level, everything about it. Like, this is not a bad record. This is them doing what they do really fucking well. And that is, I guess, the end of it. There's a couple of tracks maybe that aren't my favorite, and that's okay because it's not really my main genre of music to love. So, as a guy who might be a little bit of a tourist, I am thoroughly impressed by the proficiency of this, and more importantly, how James is being a old man with his lyrics in some places. And I've noticed that as a 30-year-old, seeing all these older guys who are now growing up and seeing how they're so much more mature with their shit, it's cool and interesting to me. And I think that the best part of all of our favorite acts growing up is this, that they're now reflecting music of their old man realities and can help us maybe shape our choices in the future. So that was just something I wanted to say earlier but did not. So that's it. 4.33.
I mean, I don't know exactly what the grade is. It's probably somewhere around there, 4.25, 4.33. What's cool about this record for me is that Metallica are still 30 plus years later absolutely on top of their game. This is a nice follow-up to Death Magnetic. It's cool to me that they released a double album because it has been a really long time since they released a proper record. I missed a little bit of the variety that was on Death Magnetic. For a 10-song record versus a 12-song record, Death Magnetic had, it had a couple of ballads. I even really, really liked the Unforgiven 3. As much as I was expecting them to go, "Or are you Unforgiven 3?" That song was a really nice surprise for me. I would have liked a little more Rob on this record, a little more bass, because that guy's a fucking monster. But I love, you can't go into a Metallica record and not love the riffs. The riffs are fucking awesome. The way the songs progress, they feel alive the same way that Metallica songs tend to feel alive. It is a great addition to their back catalog, even if it's not what I would consider one of their best records. But it is a nice representation of that classic Metallica sound that they can still pump out. They can still pump out 12 songs that are that classic Metallica sound that people have come to expect from them. And you know what?
Another 6 on the deluxe edition that we didn't review.
Those are mostly covers and lives and whatever. I think.
No, there was there was a
couple of B-sides, maybe.
That was the other 12 on that album. The track list almost doubles in the deluxe, but it's mostly covers and lives and shit.
And I think for me, what I'm looking forward to the most now is to see, because now they've done a record, right? So the next thing that they're going to do, if their track record is any indication, is they're going to do something that is going to thoroughly piss off half the world. And I cannot wait to see, because no matter what you think of them, they always go super left field. Like, I can't wait to see what they do next. I am super excited for it, because even if it's terrible, it will be interesting. You can put your money down on that. And then they'll release a great record again, and people will love them again, because that's what they do.
Because you can. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for watching us. We have more mics in our face, so hopefully the sound is better on this one. Once we get even more mics in the crib, we will have more mics on all the shows. So that's the future, better sound. Thank you all for watching this. Really, feel free to comment and let us know what you think. It also does enter you into that contest, but you also then got to subscribe and like. But we want to know what you think. We want to hear your criticisms, your feedbacks, your ideas, how you felt about this album. Do you think it deserves the Grammy win? Do you think that there should be a nicer metal category at the Grammys? Or
even a metal category? I don't even think there is one this year.
Because, it's a bit of a conversation. As much as maybe we didn't ask you as many questions, we do give a lot of fucks about what you have to think about this shit.
Hey, remember that time that Jethro Tull beat Metallica at the Grammys?
Sure. No. Anyway, that'll be it. We'll be back next week. Hopefully there's some more new music for us to delve into. 2018 has not started strong with releases, but to be fair, it's the fucking 6th today. So next week, hopefully we get the grind rolling and see a lot of amazing shit. Who knows? Maybe Metallica surfaces. I doubt it.
Probably not.
But maybe.
Maybe Tool.
Maybe Tool? Well, we'll find out. What albums are you most excited for this year? Let us know what you want us to cover as it comes out. And peace and love and all that shit.